It's a great time to be a rich man in New York, in America, really.
It's
Wink,
great
wink.
to be a rich man, right?
Yeah, right now it's so great. Wink, wink. Anyway, what's up, guys? I know you haven't seen us in a while, but this is Bubble Bath Stories, your favorite 15-minute podcast. I'm Nikki Trent.
I'm Manny Oso.
This is Manny's time to shine, all right? He's been waiting a very long time for this. Okay?
Well,
in the lower third, you're going to see WWE historian right under his name. This is another rendition of We Watched It So You Don't Have to.
Yes, it is.
Mr. McMahon Netflix documentary. I did not watch it, but you did.
Yeah, well,
fascinated. Let's dive into it.
Yeah, well, historian, no, but definitely, definitely. I gotta tell you, watching this documentary, it was a situation where if you know anything about wrestling, a lot of the stuff probably didn't seem new to you, and a lot of people online were saying that too. There wasn't a lot of new information that they came out with, but there were definitely a few things on there that you were like, what the fuck? Like, you rewound it a few times for some of the things that these people were caught saying. But as far as like as a whole, it is definitely painted to make Vince McMahon look like he runs this company like a mob, you know? The way he instills not just hope and inspires these guys that he brings up, but also they're so scared to cross him even after he's got nothing to do with it anymore.
That feels very abusive. That
yeah.
does not feel nurturing at all. Well, you already know how I feel about McMahon.
Definitely.
But you said something interesting about the documentary. How the first so it's only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
But the first 2 episodes, they kind of paint him as like this man who took nothing and turned it into this empire. Definitely.
They do take a good amount of time giving you this whole rags to riches story so that you understand that basically he did create the sports entertainment concept the way it is.
Right.
Which is not to take anything away from the guy, you know, because they do emphasize a lot of times about like how you have to understand, because of the world we live in, people can be one thing and another thing at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, people can be complete monsters and still build empires.
Right. So you think like, because then the other half is all about allegations, the lawsuits, the trouble, the rumors, you know, people coming out about how he treated them. So do you think it was like, you know, we're going to soften the blow a little bit, make you feel something, and then go whap right in the face? No,
they definitely kept it pretty balanced. I'm going to say, like, this is definitely a documentary you could put on in the background and not really worry about missing too much. Because I got to say, like, I think even like your casual wrestling viewer or a person who doesn't really know wrestling and just knows whatever comes up on the headlines would probably be like, oh, this is the kind of stuff we've already known about him, you know? Right. If somebody were like turning on Netflix and just scanning for a documentary, they would probably find it interesting, but it's not going to be any huge things that you didn't already know until you get to the last few episodes. Then you're like, oh wow.
I mean, let's be honest, it had to mean something. You cancel Netflix.
Yeah.
Then rebought it just so you could watch this. So
by the way,
obviously meant something to you.
So for like the last few years, they've been talking about this documentary, and maybe the last few months, I've been talking about canceling Netflix, and I did it. You know, we're gone from it. By the way, when did Netflix go to $20 a month?
That's again, I think we did an episode about that.
Yeah, right. It's
go
nuts.
Into that. That is
so we got it for the month. I decided to bite the bullet, put Netflix back on for this documentary specifically. And I gotta be honest, I don't think it was really super worth it.
Yeah. Are you saying that because you didn't find out any new information that you didn't already know?
Yeah, definitely.
But what were you expecting to find out?
That's a great question, you know. That is an amazing question. Everybody that I've spoken to that is a wrestling viewer, we come back to that question. You know, like, I guess when you think about it, what did we expect to find out new? I mean, the allegations are still new. They're ongoing. And right now they're paused because he's part of a federal investigation.
Oh, damn.
So it's like,
Raleigh's.
so if anything, they're just setting you up for Mr. McMahon Part 2. And it's probably going to be 4 or 5 episodes all about these allegations. Because the things that they talk about, right?
Right.
Like, and we'll talk about them in a sec. But like a lot of the things they talk about, there are documentaries about that already.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like you can find a documentary all about the Monday Night Wars where WWE and WCW were going head to head, and it ended up being WWE bought at WCW. You can find documentaries about him buying up the territories.
But those are on WWE networks.
No, other like
them.
A&E has biographies about the, like, you can find stuff like that. But
that wasn't a diss. Please don't come for me.
Yeah.
Can I just say though, things that I dislike about him, and then you can tell me if they appear in
are
the
re-emphasized?
Yeah. Okay, 1.
Yeah.
I think that he treats wrestlers and he underpays them terribly.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, great. I wasn't jumping to conclusions.
Yeah.
Go on.
So, there are 2 prime examples. And this is great because I'll be honest with you, if you don't like Vince McMahon, this documentary is going to re-emphasize a lot of stuff.
I'm super excited.
So, there's a couple prime examples. Number 1, I got to say, was Triple H's relationship with him. So Triple H came in wanting to be, if you know anything about him, Paul Levesque in general, he came in wanting to be a wrestler all his life. Woo did it, right?
Yeah.
So the situation that they spoke about with Triple H was his involvement with the curtain call as far as making you know about kayfabe as far as like the illusion of what the wrestling stories are. So there was this situation where him, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, they went out, they hugged each other in front of a crowd where they were all supposed to be enemies. So it just calls out the whole
it's fake.
The whole illusion. Yeah. So at the time, 2 of the guys were going to a different company. So they were clear from any wrongdoing. The other guy was the champion at the time, Shawn Michaels. So he couldn't really be punished in the sense of like he's the main attraction. So what are you gonna do? And Triple H was primed to become a champion later on by winning a tournament later. So he got cut from that because Vince said basically do
it in the voice.
The story we've always been told was that Vince needed to punish somebody for it to for the sense of business. So Triple H got the axe. He didn't end up winning the tournament, and Stone Cold won it instead. And Triple H had to wait a whole another year or so before he could start getting called up.
Okay, that sounds like okay.
So what we come to see on this documentary, what they lead us to believe, is the conversation was more like, you see, I think it's time we kill kayfabe anyways. So I'm going to have you 2 go out there, hug your friends, and one of you is going to have to take the axe. And it was Triple H. It really paints, though. I'll get better. It really paints, though, this whole picture of, like, at the time, there was this whole war going on between the 2 companies of viewership, right? And Vince McMahon was getting desperate because he didn't have a lot of fresh ideas coming up that wasn't already being seen other places. So it's kind of like he sent those guys out there to do that in order to change the concept of wrestling for all companies. So that he could start new. But to not be said that it was Vince's doing, he punished Triple H for it. And Triple H even said on one of the quotes, he said, when speaking to Vince McMahon about this in private, about like why I'm the one who's going to have to take the brunt of it and take a whole nother year off before I can start being on TV again and stuff. He told me, well, you're going to have to learn to eat shit and like it.
That was good. That second go was good.
And it's kind of like he's telling yeah, you're going to have to do this for me because I got bigger plans and I need somebody to be the scapegoat.
I mean, isn't Triple H running WWE now?
Is
he a part of the family? Just listen, and also I'm not my theories.
Yeah, you got your that documentary's coming.
I feel
the second
justice for China.
Take that story as you'd like, but it really it kind of changed the way I looked at the curtain call situation. It really felt like, wow, you sent these guys out there to change everything, but you didn't want anybody knowing. And it was a weird story. Just in case it failed. Yeah, in case it failed, it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
The second situation though that they talked about of why you hate them is so after WrestleMania 1 was such a success, that's when Jesse Ventura, who was a governor for Minnesota. He started doing the plans to start a union.
Okay, you know how I feel about that.
And so it was right before WrestleMania 2. They do talk about it. That so basically it's alluded that Hulk Hogan was asked to join and ask other wrestlers to be part of this thing. Yeah, so it's pretty much alluded that Hulk Hogan went to tell Vince before they could organize. And it gave Vince enough time to tell all these wrestlers basically individually, if you join this union, I'm going to replace you the very next night.
Oh my God.
This was at the feet.
Little baby
This was
bitch.
At the feet of the beginning of WrestleMania 2, where WrestleMania 1 was so successful, you would be an idiot not to ruin your chances to be on it.
Little baby bitch.
So they never did a union, and I mean, there's never been talk about a union ever since.
Okay, so that's funny because I'm always like, I can't believe these guys don't have a union. The way that basketball players, football players, the way that athletes get paid versus how wrestlers get paid is really kind of crazy. Because wrestlers have to work what feels like 365 days a year to even come close to making good wages.
Your average one? Yeah. Definitely.
365, right? But all these other sports get at least 3 months off to recoup, and they own their own names. Like some of these wrestlers, if they were to get fired, they would have to literally start from the beginning.
John Cena doesn't own his own name.
But I feel like he plays the game.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There was definitely a point in time where he didn't. The Rock just got his name back.
Yeah, but he's a legacy.
Yeah, but famously, there was an article where he just got the rights to his name back.
Well, yeah, but still, Vince is gonna fuck him over because he's a legacy. His family invented fucking wrestling. Anyway, for someone who isn't a wrestling fan, I know way too much about. Anyway, but I've always said how
everybody's number is gonna get called for some reason.
I always said it was so crazy because they're also putting their bodies through a crazy. I don't even know how to explain it, but their bodies are literally getting beat up 365 days a year.
Well, these guys perform hurt as well, so
because they can't afford.
They can't afford not to. They can't afford to be that time put back on their contract if they want to do something different. They can't afford. They can't afford to not do it. They can't afford to do it. Because then it takes time off their lives.
Yes.
Remember
that whole thing with the Twitch situation?
There's a lot of wrestlers out there right now after wrestling that are just struggling to get out of bed.
Ugh,
and
terrible.
It is terrible. And obviously, anybody can just try to scapegoat and say, well, they chose this. It's not about that. It's about what these companies make
what
versus
they dangle in front of you.
What they dangle, what they make versus what these guys get at the end,
So moving along, because we can actually
that's a whole different conversation.
You guys deserve better. There was something that when we were talking about doing this episode that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
So you were telling me Stone Cold doesn't believe in CTE.
Oh wow, yeah. I don't know who is in charge of when you do interviews, isn't there supposed to be a person behind the camera telling you giving you cues don't talk about that.
Okay, so the interviewee could have a rep there to be no. You can also get a preview of the questions.
Mm-hmm. So there was this whole part of the documentary where they bring up the Chris Benoit CTE situation. You know, Chris Benoit, who by the way has not been officially mentioned on wrestling in WWE.
Yeah, there's a doc about that on
A&E. It's a whole thing. Yeah, they won't even mention his name.
We'll put that in the notes.
And so they're talking about him, and they're talking about these guys, the wrestlers, and their opinions on this, because one wrestler, his name is Chris Nowinski. He actually graduated from Harvard. Mm-hmm. He decided to become a wrestler. He was a wrestler, right? His first concussion, he decided, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And he tried bringing some of the notes and some of the research to doctors in WWE to bring up to Vince McMahon to make it as kind of part of their curriculum as like safety precautions, right? And at first, Vince apparently there's this whole they recorded the end. They showed us the end of the interview, the conversation that they had on the phone with the reps from Harvard, the Harvard medical team, and Chris Nowinski, and talking to him about it. And basically they describe it as like Vince telling them, "What are you doing? He's like, Chris, what are you doing? You're messing things up for me." You know? Yeah. And so they fought hard, but it wasn't until after Chris Benoit did what he did that Vince McMahon called Chris Nowinski and Harvard. And this is where it is like based on the viewer, what you believe. But the way it's painted, it's like Vince probably had like, he probably thought like, hey, you know what? This just happened. I need to get somebody on it. I got somebody who's been wanting to get on it. This is going to help. Let me bring them over, make it a little PR nicer.
But they, like, fucked him over, though.
They asked him, Chris Nowinski, and the guys who were in charge of all that, too. They asked him, like, basically, if you had an opinion, what do you think? Do you think Vince started the CTE campaign and making WWE safer?
Stone Cold that?
No, they asked Chris Nowinski. Okay. I'll get to Stone Cold. They asked Chris Nowinski, hey, do you think that Vince started the whole safety against CTE to help his wrestlers, or do you think he started it as a PR thing?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't want to answer it that way. The best answer I can give you is that our interests finally align.
Yep.
And these guys are safe. Yeah. And that's all I care about.
Okay.
Take that as you want.
Okay.
Then they ask some of the wrestlers.
Okay.
Stone Cold's fucking dumbass gets on camera. Obviously doesn't have that guy standing behind the camera to check.
Going, no.
They ask him basically in a series of questions like what he thinks about wrestlers who get concussions and what he thinks about CT in general. And he says in his own little way that wrestlers who get concussions are just not doing it right. And that he doesn't believe in CTE. He's just not a CTE guy.
Yeah, he's lucky he's not a CTE guy.
I was like...
He should be counting his blessings.
Huh? What do you mean you're not a CTE guy?
Like a Kim again?
It's another sign, though, of these guys who are brainwashed and just protect the company so much that they just can't say anything bad about it, you know?
Yeah.
And so when they do ask Vince McMahon what he thinks, he basically responds with, "Oh, well, you know, he didn't. They didn't ask him on there. They asked him earlier in an interview. They got him on a quote saying that basically he thinks that CTE in combination with drugs and traumatic experiences is what causes these guys to go crazy."
Another adding on to that.
Yeah.
Steroid usage.
Yeah.
You know, because CTE steroids.
Yeah.
Go hand in hand.
But no, that's the other thing too.
But you talk about like there was a big scandal with that.
So yeah, he had
was he behind the wrestlers, or was it more of like the pressure he was putting on it was kind of indirectly?
I think it was indirect pressure. Definitely.
You got any juice on you?
You got any juice on you, boys? You're not looking big enough there. It is funny, the steroid subject throughout the entire docuseries, right? And all 6 episodes, the way he views steroids, is like, there's nothing wrong with steroids. Like, steroids don't do anything wrong to you. Which I get it. It's just a medicine. Yeah, but it is abused, and it
has terrible side effects.
But he has such like a positive view to steroids. It's like weirdly positive.
No, because it's not positive because of steroids. It's a positive reinforcement to wrestlers who are desperate to remain on top.
But he just like doubles down on it like it's just chewing gum almost, the way he talks about it.
How did his kids get involved? Because let me say, my timeline was blowing up at the I guess there was some point in the documentary where they were talking about storylines. And one of the storylines being that he is the father of his daughter's child.
Yeah, we could talk about his kids for a second too.
So I imagine it is tough to be a Lady McMahon.
It's got to be tough. It's got to be tough being a Lady McMahon. But I got to be honest with you.
I'm a Lady McMahon.
If we're going to talk about his kids and what they were in the documentary, Stephanie did a lot of things that got brought onto herself.
Ooh.
Like, yeah.
Our number is 347-878-1144.
I'm not going to sit here and say that she did a lot of wrong things, but the stuff that like they kind of call her out on.
Like what?
Okay. So there was definitely this one thing that they talked about with Mike Tyson.
Okay.
So Mike Tyson was brought in to be part of the main event during Stone Cold's fight, right?
Okay.
And so at the time, Mike Tyson was a huge star, right? So Mike Tyson, ratings, we have these wrestlers who are supposed to be all against the man, you know, the man, all against that. So Mike Tyson just fits in. Let's bring him in. So they ask her though, right? Because what else do we know about Mike Tyson? What do we know about Mike Tyson and women?
Yeah, not great. Not a great history.
Not a great history, right? At the time though, here's what they asked her. Where is it?
Rare.
So bringing in Mike Tyson was Vince and Shane's idea. So in 2013, Stephanie was asked if knowing Mike Tyson's background back in the 90s and knowing that he was risky, was as far as bringing on to TV, was it right to fully invest with him? And she replies, looks at the camera, he hadn't been arrested for rape yet when he did that, right? And then they tell her yes, and she's like, he did? Oh. But, like, how do you not know stuff like that at the time when you're putting things like that together?
Oh, my God. How did you... you literally have to have you have to live underground, under a rock.
So...
Like, how would you not have known that?
That clip of the interview was brought back to us as a viewer just to kind of give us a little insight of, like, how do you not know? But... there was this veil over everyone that worked there that, like, I guess you just go with it, right?
Yeah.
How do you go with that? Now, yeah, we could talk about it now because we're in hindsight. But that's why I say, like, yeah, you could talk all you want about it. It was probably tough working in the company. But Stephanie, like, how do you say things like that? Yeah, he was in trouble for rape at the time. Yes, he was at the time.
Yeah, you're also a huge corporation. I imagine that you have people doing background checks. Like, why wouldn't anybody on the team inform you that this may not be a good idea?
They do talk a lot that she's strong and that she's the person that the wrestlers trust more than Vince and Shane. But it makes you wonder how she treats the other women wrestlers in there.
Justice for China.
Shane McMahon, on the other hand, his portrayal on the documentary was very much like you really feel sorry for the kid because whatever you think about the guy, when you're brought up in a prominent family, the idea really is always that you're gonna be put as part of the company.
Yeah.
And
you're a legacy. You're
a
the
legacy.
heir.
Yeah, you're the heir. You're the man's son.
Yeah.
And they really do show how he had to like fight for Vince's approval so much that he wasn't even part of the company. He was just a performer.
Yeah.
Where Stephanie was actually in the board meetings and stuff.
I mean, he probably didn't think he could handle it.
That's what they're saying. Vince continuously thought he couldn't handle it, and they really hone in on some of the ideas that Shane had that Vince just flat out refused. So one of the ones that they bring up is that back when UFC was starting to become really, really huge, at the beginning of right before it was like worth so much, they had an opportunity because Shane sat down with the people. They had an opportunity to actually purchase UFC back then, and Vince didn't want to do it because it was Shane's idea and not his idea. Fast forward 2020s, and now UFC purchases WWE.
He just hated his son.
Yeah, bro.
His son must have represented everything he wanted to be and wasn't. That is so grimy.
Yeah.
That's why when I watch shows like Succession, I'm like, oh, but this has got to be real.
Yeah.
This is real. This is what these families are going through. I mean, there's so much more in the documentary, but before we wrap up, what was like the one thing that actually surprised you? That actually you watched it and you stopped and went, oh shit, WTF.
You know, there was a lot in that documentary. A lot of stuff that you just would probably listen to it and just like pause it for a second and think like, I can't believe these people think like this, right? Yeah. And they really wrap it up at the end with Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard is one of the guys working with WWE, close to Vince his whole life, basically. And they interview him, like he's one of the last people they interview before the allegations come out. And he's the first person they show as interviewed when the allegations do actually come out. Mm-hmm. And they ask him what he thinks still. Yeah. And so he says to them, with his words and with his lips, he says, basically, you guys didn't get the real Vince. Vince is a great person. He's a great man. He even helped my wife when she had cancer, got us the best treatment. He told us she's going to live 20 more years than she did. And you guys are just trying to make him look bad. That's what he said with his words. But when you look at him in the eyes and rewatch that, it's really more like he's saying, how can I go against this man when I owe him so much? Yeah. You guys are saying he did these things, which he probably did.
Yeah, allegedly. Please don't sue us.
And I'm supposed to go against him after he saved my wife. I owe him.
Yeah.
And it made me really think. I paused it for a second because it really made me think about that being in a situation like that. Like, yeah, we all of us standing out here, see what's going on and say, hey, there's a problem. But this guy brought up so many people that we kind of look at, and these guys are scared of him.
Yeah, well, when we talked about that, I said that it's abuse. That's like a toxic and abusive because it doesn't feel like it's unconditional. Yeah. Like now you feel like you owe him. Yes. And so you feel, but what does that say about what your morals are? Because if he didn't do that for you, you then would advocate for the victims, or you would be like, yeah, he did do it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I feel like if this is somebody that is going out of their way to help you in a predicament like that, like making sure your wife gets the best care, why is it that you can't realize what's wrong is wrong? Yeah. At the end of the day, what's wrong, what he did is wrong. His reputation precedes him.
This guy definitely built a world where for a long time he was safe. Because everybody that was a part of that world followed everything that he said, like it or not. We all watched the show. We all followed, and the way he set it up, and they said it in the documentary too. He set this world up in a way where, like, once the bad guy is vanquished, it's on to the next person.
Yeah.
And so, like, as a wrestling fan, it's in your mind that way. Like, yeah, we got rid of them. Cool. On to the next thing. And now we're not even thinking about them. And we're still buying the tickets.
And can I just say that it's very much like Real Housewives?
Yeah.
Because every season there's a new villain.
Yeah.
Oh
again.
Oh my God. Guys, Manny watched it, so you didn't have to. But if after listening to this you want to watch it, we implore you to. It's on Netflix. It's called Mr. McMahon. If you guys want to know what we're up to, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube at Bubble Bath Stories.
If you want to find me, you can get me at Got No Time For This on IG.
And you can catch me at Nikki Trends on Instagram. And if you want some official merchandise like this hat. You can go to bubblebathstories.co
and join the conversation.
Oh, or you can hit us up on our hotline at 347-878-1144 if you want to hit us up with compliments, complaints, or even if you want to tell us why you hate Vince McMahon. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
You hesitated. Can you do your best Macho Man Savage? Oh yeah, Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
Yes,
oh yeah, brother. Don't you know that when you get me into the ring and I get my thing going on, I get excited and I make sure.
No, yours is way better than mine.